If you'd like to be able to listen to the show without ads and have full access to bonus content, that's an option. To find out how, please go to dogmanencounters.com/podcast. Hey everyone, thanks so much for listening to tonight's live stream episode of Dogman Encounters Radio. I really appreciate it. Before we bring on tonight's guest, I want to give you some updates. Number one, I'm beyond happy to announce that Jo moved into her new home at the start of this month. There were some hang-ups with the other property that she wanted to move into, but that's okay. The house that she moved into at the start of September here is actually a better option for her. So she's beyond elated about that. And both of us, we can't thank you enough for all of the support and help that you gave her that made this move possible. We're also glad for her not having to deal with that horrible house with all that black mold in it. And I've been in talks with her about coming back on so she can personally update you on how she's doing. And I know she wants to thank all of you at least one more time for all the help you've given her. Not just the financial aid, but all the support. She was really having a hard time with the experiences that she had. And of course, she can't thank you enough. Moving on to the second update, as I'm sure a lot of you are going to remember, I had planned to bring Kim on for a special live stream last Tuesday, but unfortunately, poor Kim, she got sick and lost her voice. So luckily, she's better now. She sent me a message, I think it was yesterday, telling me that she's almost back to normal. So I coordinated with her to air a special live stream with her this Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern time. So she can come on and tell you about this latest encounter that she's had with Ember. And on that show, she's got something that's going to blow you away to announce, something she noticed when she had this most recent sighting with Ember. Of course, Ember is the name that she gave that female, the dog woman that she's seen a couple of times. But yeah, that's a show you're not going to want to miss. All right. Having said that, moving on to tonight's show. Some people have had dogman encounters under unfortunate circumstances, I guess you could say. But just imagine for a second what it would be like to be trying to deal with being in the middle of a hurricane with all the winds and all the stuff that comes along with that. Well, not only that, but being in a cemetery to boot, between maybe midnight-ish and 1 a.m. in the morning. Well, that's going to be traumatic for pretty much anyone. But adding to that, imagine for a second what it would be like to think at first that you're removing yourself from the situation just to find out that that dog man is actually coming for you. Just horrible. Nightmare fuel. Well, what I'm getting at is, of course, I've got tonight's guest on ready to bring in here to talk about that experience. But yeah, just imagine for a second what that must have been like. All right, without any further ado, let's bring him in here now. Before I do, so that you know, he wanted to remain anonymous. With that in mind, we've decided to just refer to him as Jared tonight. Jared, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Hey, Vic. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Glad to bring you on. Jared, please give us a brief bio on yourself.
Let's see. I'm a father of two girls, and have a bunch of animals and rescue animals, cats and dogs, and lived in all over the East Coast, but been in the Southeast North Carolina for the last 20 plus years. And let's see, I work in sales, and I've always been an outdoorsman. Love to fish. Don't do as much hunting as I used to do, but used to do a lot more, but still a big fisherman. And it's kind of the scoop on me. There's just not hopefully that's sufficient.
Oh, it is. It definitely sounds to me like you stay busy.
Very busy, yes.
Yeah,
So I like.
I'm sure you do stay busy. You mentioned the rescue work that you do. Do you keep the animals at your home or at a different place?
I have been a foster. I have been a foster many times. Currently, I don't have any, but yeah, I help find foster homes for animals, mainly dogs and cats. Sometimes there's others, but I open my doors up as well quite often, and you know, just had about every kind of, especially dog you can imagine. So
Wow.
they don't have much choice, so we try and help them.
Well, that's awfully admirable. Yeah, I'm really glad that you do that. You're a good man. You definitely are. I'm wondering, Jared, how much of a burden have your dogman encounters put on your day-to-day life?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to quantify. It's there's a whole level roller coaster of emotions and responses that go with that. But I think over the years since my first encounter, I've recognized more that it's been a lot more significant, a larger burden than I originally recognized or allowed myself to recognize, if that makes sense. Um, eh, I still go outside in the woods. I still do those things, but I'm hyper vigilant now. Um, and because of from your intro, it's kind of an eerie time when you're in the middle of a storm. Whenever I'm very vigilant of whenever weather or pressure changes happen, I've kind of related that to this stuff. So I'm always kind of on edge when things change, such as weather, if that makes sense, or anything. Just like if it gets quiet, So much more vigilant than I used to be. So I think that takes a lot of time and energy. So how to quantify that, I don't know, but it's a big significant change. So.
Well, I can understand why. And yeah, once bitten, twice shy from now on, unfortunately. From now on, anytime there's bad weather out, it's blowing and raining, I can't see how you can't go back to that night in the cemetery and relive what unfortunately happened.
It was like the perfect storm, right? The cemetery just happened to be the place that I could park because we couldn't get through the road. So it just not I've been in that cemetery 100 times, but it was never a big deal. But it happened to be there when I had my first encounter. So
Yeah, it happens that way sometimes, unfortunately. You told me in our first conversation that your encounters have changed you. How so?
um, primarily, yeah, the it's hard to acknowledge that actually when you see these things that it actually is true. You can hear about it, listen to it, but when it happens to you, it does change. It flips your world upside down because everything you've been like in my space, it was that everything that I've known is not true. And who do you talk to about that? Which is so grateful for you, but it's really just it kind of it isolates you. It isolated me. So and kind of just knowing something that many people do, but many don't is it's isolating. I think that's the best way to describe it. It hasn't I haven't really limited where I go or what I do. I have to a degree, but not as much as I'm still willing to push it and go out and I'm not a homebody, but more so it's kind of flipped the script on the world as I've seen it until that time, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah. Ever since you learned how to speak, it's been hammered into your head time after time that monsters don't exist. Well, guess what? In September of 2018, in a cemetery during a hurricane, you found out that's bunk, that they do exist.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that kind of a revelation, it is going to turn everything on its ear. It's totally understandable. You talked about the isolation you tend to feel now after having such an experience, and this next question touches on that. You've been blackballed, unfortunately, by friends and family. To what extent and how hard has that been on you?
Well, I thought I was being pretty cautious sharing this because understandably most people don't have these experiences, and when I say most, by just meaning by the numbers. And I selectively chose at certain times to try and share with certain people, and I there are select people that are certain people that have never looked at me the same, like something's wrong with me. Yeah, I try to play it off like it was not like, oh yeah, I was just messing around, or whatever it was, but it is affected my family relationships. It has affected a few. I have a couple friends that are very supportive, but I have out of the handful I've told, uh, I've lost half of them. Um,
Oh,
yeah. So, and not no not necessarily lost it that day, but it was like, something's wrong with that guy, because they can't imagine it. So it's you know, um, yeah, I'm fine. I'm getting through it. I'm getting by. But it did it changed relationships. It did.
what a shame. They're supposed to be family. They're supposed to be friends. When you need them most in a situation like this, what we're talking about, they abandon you on that. That is absolutely horrible. Shame on them for doing that.
Yeah. I try to think about, though, if I did not have an experience and someone came to me like that, and I tend to think and hope I would be very supportive, but I think I would be, but you never know until you're there. So it it's the way human nature, I guess.
That is a good point. If I had to count how many eyewitnesses I've spoken with over the years who, if it wasn't them who had the encounters, if it was a family member or a friend of theirs who did, tons of them would have taken the same stance and, yeah, made fun of them, probably tried to alienate them. So, yeah, that's a good point.
Or get concerned, like, is that guy okay? But anyway, we all hope we do the right thing, but this is kind of an extreme situation.
Yes, it is. Yeah, very extreme. Jared, if that dog man wouldn't have come after you that night, how much easier do you think that experience would have been to deal with?
um well, it's kind of that was terrifying, absolutely. There's the thing that really got me, because I didn't know what a dogman was before this. I'd never, I didn't even consider that. The thing that really scared me, um, before getting chased, was that I had a sense of dread when do you mind if I share the story a little bit? Give it some
Uh,
context?
let's wait to go into
Okay, sure,
details.
yeah. No,
If
no, it just
it's going to
I
be
was the fear of that. The fear of that was there was a lot of fear before that, and then when I was chased, I kind of like I remember it, but I was kind of blacked out. There's nothing except for that door I'm trying to get to, and it was terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying. So had that not happened, I don't know, but it still was pretty damn scary. I'm sorry, pretty scary. Regardless, so
Oh, I'm sure it was scary. Yeah, that just doesn't do what happened any justice. It doesn't. I want to
no word.
definitely, yeah, we do need a new word to do it any justice. Before I ask you to tell us about your encounter, there are two things I wanted to address. Number one, we've got two donations, one from Lily Lewis, and one from Tiffany Harding. Both of you, thank you so much for supporting the show. I really appreciate it. Appreciate that. And also, too, I wanted to address the fact that there was an eyewitness who 2 weeks ago I'd scheduled a show with to come on, and he was going to talk about an encounter he had that he describes as torturing him to present day. Well, unfortunately, about 2 days ago, his mother let me know that he's currently in the ICU in a medically induced coma, and he's not doing well right now. That just gutted me. It just gutted me. That's not Dogman related, why he's in the hospital right now, but yeah, definitely prayers go out to him. I don't want to reveal a name, but prayers definitely go out to him. And of course, we hope he pulls through that. That is not a good situation at all. And we'll be praying for him. All right. Having said that, Jared, please tell us all about your encounters now. Give us every last detail that comes to mind.
Okay. This was, 6 years ago or so. On the coast, and there was a pretty large storm that came through. So, fortunately, this is a hurricane, and it lessened in strength right before it got to us. And usually they pass through in a day or so. But unfortunately, the prevailing winds or whatever the weather pattern was, it just stayed on top of us with a level 1, 2, then a 1, then a tropical storm for like 5 or 6 days, and it was just you're in a very windy thunderstorm with periods of torrential rainfall for 5 days, and it did hit with enough power that we couldn't really get around. There wasn't gas available. On occasion, we could get to one gas station, and we had to cut our way out of the just normal hurricane stuff. Cut our way out of the neighborhood, but we had limited. We didn't have power on the grid. We had limited ways to get through. I mean, a lot of roads were impassable. So I was I happened to live near my family in the same neighborhood, about a mile or so away, and they had a better generator system than I did. But I still had mine at my house. But had a young child at the time, very young, and so I was going back and forth between the houses, but I couldn't quite get there. So I was parking my car and checking on generators, filling them with gas, whatnot, to keep the lights on and food and refrigerator running. So I check it about 3 times a day. So all that background, I went at about day 3 or 4 into the storm. I think it was 3. But went back, and I had to park about a quarter mile from my house I was staying in. And I'd done this every day, multiple times a day for a while. But I went out to check one more time at night, and did everything at my house, came back, and it's blowing. It's windy, it's kind of eerie, but I'll go drive around, parking this as close as I can possibly get to walk to this other house where I'm staying. So I pull up there like I have done multiple days in a row. I got out of my SUV at the time, and I had a bunch of stuff, bags that I was going to get out of the back of my SUV. But I got out, closed the door, and before I got to the back of this Forerunner to open the gate, I just something hit me like a ton of bricks. This impending sense of dread, doom. No idea why. Not The storm's 3 days old. I'm not scared of the storm at all now. I'm in the cemetery all the time. That's not it. But it just I was terrified. Tried to open the back. I opened the back gate of the truck, and then let's see. I was trying to ignore it and get my stuff together, but it was overwhelming enough and foreign to me that I ended up closing the gate, running to the closest door, which is now the passenger door of my Forerunner, and jumping in and locking the door. And I didn't even know why. It was very, very, very uneasy feeling. So sitting there for a while, thinking I'm crazy, I'm insane. No, but I didn't see anything. I'm scanning around, but I don't see anything. I eventually mustered up about 15 minutes. I was like, all right, let's just get your stuff. You got to walk about 400 yards and you're good. So I did. I got my bags out of the back and loaded myself up. Still feel the same way, but I'm feeling a little better because I'm just going to push through it. And then I got back around about halfway up the car. And let's see, the direction I was not going was downhill a little bit. It was kind of a slow rolling hill. As I'm walking around the car, I catch some really, really strong eye shine, very amber. I mean, it was just piercing. Downhill, so it's kind of hard to, and it's very dark out, and on occasion the clouds will part and a little moonshine come through, so I see a little bit here and there, but it was very dark, and couldn't tell how low, or I couldn't really tell how far down it was, but it was within. It was no more than 30 yards, no more, probably 25. And I'm like, that's pretty terrifying. I'm gonna keep walking, and then it moved a little bit, and I realized that the separation, the eyes were really big. It didn't make sense. We have a lot of coyotes in the neighborhood. We have foxes in the neighborhood. It was too big for that. It didn't make any sense. It was really low to the ground too. So very confused, kind of getting terrified, and then the clouds parted a little bit, and I saw some shine, and I could see that it had the haunches, I'll call it, like the back of a dog's legs. I could see clearly. That's the first thing I saw, and it was much farther back than where the eyes were. And this thing was kind of laying down a little bit, and it was very far bigger than I thought it was. And around the same time, it raised up a couple feet, and the back legs didn't move. It could deal with a coyote, but this was not a coyote, so it was terrifying. And when it raised up, I thought it was going to come to me, and I just ran. I had about 100 yards, backpack, and carrying the strap. I mean, I got a bunch of stuff. I'm just trying to get there as fast as I can. I dropped a few things, but that 125 yards or so that I was on the grass, and it's it, I remember thinking, please don't follow me. And then within about a second or two, I heard boom, 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 the footfall, and it sounded like like it wasn't walking. It was back legs, front legs. It was I just sorry. It comes back. But it was. I even had I even in my car had some protection, if you will, and I had that with me, and I didn't even think about that. I just wanted to get to the door, just run, and I did, and I don't recall when I got to the pavement, hearing. I never heard. I'm not sure if I remember or not, but I heard the footfall behind me, and it was really close. But I never heard it hit the pavement. I remember thinking about, if I hear that, then I'm in real big trouble. But it was such a blur. I'm not sure if it followed me farther than that. I don't think it followed me past the grass, but it was. I played sports. It was kind of fast, but I probably record time 40 or whatever, that day. It was just, I didn't think I'd get out of there. I really didn't. I had my family over here at the house as a young child, and I I remember I couldn't even really explain what happened to my wife, and but I just wanted to patrol. I was head on a swivel off the back gate with trying to make sure it doesn't come into the house. It was no sleep that night, but uh, I made it. I made it to the door. So that was uh and at the time I didn't really know what it was. I did some research, and the amber eyes, and then the hind legs I know, and then I had a set of teeth on it too when the moon hit. But it I when you're not even familiar with any of this stuff, and it was really hard to explain, and it really hard to wrap my head around. But anyway, sorry, I'm digressing. It's pretty terrifying, and never seen anything that big, that
No, please don't
fast.
apologize. You don't need to apologize at all. Just take your time.
Um, well, that was, I mean, that was the main encounter. But just for the reference, I didn't know. I didn't know about Dogman, and now I do, because I mean, endless Google searches, for what this was, and then I actually found you guys, and I saw that's exactly what I saw. So it was I couldn't tell. It was either really dark brown or black, but the things, the amber eyes, that was the really piercing part. Um, let's see, it wasn't gray at all. It was either, I think it was really dark brown, it might be black, but just big, just long. It was stretched out. I was laying down on its stomach, and it started to raise up. Um, so anyway, from there, I was terrified all night, and tried to, what are you gonna do? Tell your people around you what happened? It was very, wasn't sure what to do, but uh, unfortunately, the next day or two, the storm cleared up, and we could get through, and didn't have to park there anymore. But I actually didn't go back to the house and let my generators run out until the road opened. It was about a day and a half later. It was pretty scary. Um, let's see. Then my wife, I told her about it. She didn't know what's wrong with me, or what are you freaking out about. But then when I eventually calmed down and told her about it, she was supportive. She was. Um, but and ironically enough, about within 2 months, I want to say I can't recall, 3 to 6 weeks later, she was driving past that area, and kind of stopped in her tracks, had her headlights shining on right across the street from where I was. There's it's probably 5 feet tall on the top rung, a white fence, and she after me telling her about ice and everything, she caught some of her headlights, and she actually saw a dog man crouching down behind the fence, crouching with his eyes just over the top rung, which maybe it's 4 feet or 5, but it was crouching. So I don't know. He found a home for a little while, but I don't live there anymore. But she saw him too. Kind of shook her up a lot as well. Since we've moved not long after that, frankly. But that was my hurricane experience.
When you're ready, please continue with the next one.
Sure. So that was, like I said, 6 years ago or so. And I just want to say, I mean, I did some homework, found you guys, and it's been very helpful. But I deal with this, you just deal with this, the family, the friends, and tell a few people as soon as I know I'm being redundant, but a couple were supportive, a couple weren't, and I just kind of claimed up about it for a while. But kind of get through it, working through it, and living life. But I moved again since the move after that house, farther out in the country, and love it. It's great. And very recently, actually, and all of a sudden, about 2 weeks ago, a little less than 2 weeks ago, I had another encounter. I have 2 places up here, and I have a fence behind my backyard, pretty good sized yard, and nothing's behind us. It's just the field and then a bunch of trees. It's very country. And let's see, there's my dogs are going crazy. One in particular was going crazy, and I went out, and there's uh, heavy footfall. There are black bears around here, but then I caught the eyes of this thing, and it kind of peeked around the corner, and I caught some eyes, and just took me right back to where I was in the cemetery that day, and I was like, I know what that is, and it took off. 100 miles an hour is probably, I mean, it was so fast. It was amazing. And it shot down. It was a straight shot this field. I can see almost a mile, and it was gone, just going in no time. It was, it was crazy. It was really, heavy and then just so swift. I mean, it felt like it took like 4 steps and it was completely out of view. It was really, I know it was more than that, but it was pretty, how do I say, impressive and terrifying at the same time. But and then frankly, I have a other property, have some chickens on right down the street from here, and that one we had little problems with people, other predators going after chickens. So let's check on them, and went out the other night and I heard the same thing, and it's just heavy footfall, and I didn't see it this time, but it was so heavy. There's nothing it could be, and it took off so fast because I could hear it. It was in the kind of a ditch that is very grown up, probably 10, 20 feet, and and you could see the brush moving, but it was so fast. It was almost like it would skip like 20 yards and then maybe 30 yards, and then you see it move again, just gone. It's like I can't describe how fast this thing is. And that all happened about 2 weeks ago within nothing for a little bit. And then last night showed up again at the house where, two separate properties, but they're very close. Same thing, got some eye shine. It stuck around a little bit. I didn't stick around though. I brought dogs in and I said, I'm just going to go hole up because didn't really want to deal with that again. But so same relative area, but 6 years apart. This one's big though. This one might be bigger. It's pretty. You can feel the ground when it takes off. It's pretty wild. So it kind of resurfaced after I was kind of getting through it and everything, and but it kind of all came flying back in the past couple of weeks. So those are my encounters, and it has changed my life. Absolutely.
Well, I'm sure they have. If I heard you correctly, you said this most recent dogman that you had an encounter with was probably bigger than the one that you had the encounter with in the cemetery. Did I hear you right when you said that?
The reason I say that is because I could feel it, the ground, when it took off, and I don't recall that with the first one. The other one's really big, but this one I couldn't get a full scope of the size. But the first 3 or 4 steps twice is just good on. Like I could feel it under your feet. I'm standing in the yard, and it was heavy. It was really heavy. So I'm speculating a little bit, but it's enough to make you go inside and lock the door.
Yes, that would be. If you had to guess, how much do you think it weighed?
Gosh, I mean, we have black bear around here is heavier than that. It's gotta be completely shooting in the dark, 300-400 pounds. I mean, it's probably light from I don't know, but I mean yeah. I'm sorry. That's a really rough estimate, but it was big enough that I could feel it. So
Yeah, if you could feel it through the ground, that's pretty big. That's definitely big enough.
and it was about maybe 20. It was a little closer, about 20 yards away. So it wasn't right on top of it, but it was still that far away. It's pretty big.
Yeah, that would be pretty big. When the dogman in the cemetery rose up, did you hear any strange sounds?
No, I didn't. I did not. And I want to clarify. Whenever I saw it rise up, what I think happened is now that it was down low and it raised up almost on his arms, if you will. Because it went up about 2 feet, and that's when the moon, the clouds cleared, and I saw the moon came through, and I could see the legs still laid out behind it. So it didn't make any sounds. I think I know what you're talking about, but no, I didn't catch any sounds. But again, the wind's howling too, so I don't recall that.
Yeah, with winds blowing 50, 60, maybe even 70 miles an hour, then yeah, it's going
Yeah, we were still
to
about 60, 70 that time. Yep.
that's going to make it awfully hard to hear anything that it did. Definitely. After having that first encounter, you said that you started to feel kind of marked by it. Please expand on that for us.
Well, I think it goes to the point, and this is me my thinking it through. Yeah, you're I became hyper vigilant, hyper aware, and uh, obviously, it's a threat. You're become more aware, but and you just certain situations where I might walk down the path in the woods or wherever it may be in the past, you might get a little creepy feeling, um, and just say ignore it. And now I don't do that anymore, and I feel like that's a hypervigilance. And then also, I I've had enough of those that felt a little creepy that I just kind of walked away, got away from the area. So without seeing them until recently, I always suspected maybe there's a dogman out here, but now it's kind of, I mean, 45 minutes away, and there's another one. It's like it does. You kind of feel like once. It's almost like once. Uh, I don't know how. This is just my thoughts. I don't know how. There's probably no validity to it, but it's almost like, yep, I know you're there. Now might visit you again, and they did. It just kind of. It does feel kind of feels like they're trying to. It's a fear factor, and it's a, I don't know, a reminder we're here. It's kind of what it feels like. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But it's kind of seems like, well, why have most of the population not seen this, and now I got to see it 4 times, So uh, kind of feel marked. If that makes sense.
That does make sense. And it's totally natural that you would wonder that. Why
Yeah,
me? I wish there was a good answer I could give you for that, but I
yeah,
can't, unfortunately. But understand when you listen to so many eyewitnesses come on and talk about having follow up encounters with these guys, it's only natural to wonder, to think that, okay, if I have an encounter with a dog man, it's pretty much a given that more to come, more to
yeah.
follow. But as hard as it might be to believe, it really is the exception and not the rule that an eyewitness who has one encounter has a follow-up encounter, because normally you just have one. Of all the people I've spoken with about their encounters, it might seem common for there to be a follow-up encounter, but that's definitely the exception, not the rule. I just wanted to make sure you understood that.
Thank you, because one of those things where you remember that those that did have a follow up, and it's not, but without doing the math on it, yeah, that's. Oh, so I'm extra special now. I'm teasing, but that's it's yeah,
Well,
yeah. So thank you for that. I mean, it's good to not feel marked, if you will, but they get in your head, it just does, and I know all your folks with encounters, it can really mess with your head. It really can.
yes, it can. Yeah, life can be difficult as it is without these kind of problems. But when you stack these sorts of problems on top of the problems you deal with on a day to day basis in life, yeah, it's just too much. And it definitely isn't fair. It's not fair at all.
Yeah.
When the dog man moved, Jared, was it jerky in its movements or was it smooth?
It was very fast when it raised up. Extremely fast, one swift motion. Um, it was that's the best I can say. It was fast, raised about my best guess, 2 feet. And it was really fast. It was almost like a glitch on the screen, but it moved really fast. So I couldn't. After that, I turned and ran. I didn't see it running. I just heard it. Um, the other one on the movement was it's so fast. It was, you know, it got out of the bushes last night. And then it was, I don't, I want to say jerky. It was almost like, how is it possible you got there that fast by taking 4 steps? Is my best way to describe it. kind of a commotion at first, and then it was just like gliding almost. Yeah, so jerky is not the word to answer that. To try and circle back and answer your question, jerky is not what I saw. No.
That might seem like a strange question, but the reason I asked it is, yeah, there are quite a few eyewitnesses who've reported seeing the dog man that they encountered kind of jerking and twitching like a crack addict almost, just almost uncomfortable in its own skin and just couldn't really even hold still. So that's why I was asking you that question for that reason. A few years before you had
Yeah.
that first experience, Jared, you had some paranormal experiences. What can you tell us about them?
Oh yeah, I was in I had I had a go of it lately, but there is a house that I purchased that I did a little bit of renovations, things like that, and flips, but purchased the house and was working on it, and we just had a kind of an eerie feeling. One room in particular, nice big brick house, but the daughter was really scared of it too, and she was young at the time, in the early elementary school, but she was a little nervous about some things and was always pay attention to that. And then had a had a lot of sounds, a lot of just things that didn't make sense. You let go one or two of those, but then when you start hearing stuff pretty loud, slamming doors, things like that, then go check it out. And had a lot of, I guess, poltergeisty stuff, a lot of loud sounds and noises, but one point saw something pretty good, a big black mist, if you will. And then I didn't really share that too much with anyone else, especially my daughter. Didn't was scared. But then we had an experience. It didn't really snow here much, but it did. And this is probably the next, within a few months, next when winter came around. But had this really weird experience where we're all looking out the window. It's a snow day, kids are out of school and this and that, and we don't have many of those, but it was pretty exciting. And we lived on the Woolly Hill near the coast, so all the kids were coming to our backyard to go sledding. So we were doing that, and then my youngest daughter and I, well, she's my oldest daughter now, but we were looking out the window and we're like, huh, these guys are walking around our yard. It's fenced in. There's a guy all of a sudden. It was literally like a minute or two since we looked, and we looked back, and this guy standing like 50 feet in our yard, looking up at a tree. We were just like, what's he doing? So we're like, do we know him? Just looking through the window, and literally I said, stay here, look at the window, and I'm gonna go out there and talk to him. By the time I got to the door, he disappeared. My daughter never went out sledding that day. She was terrified. It was really strange, really strange. There's no way someone could do that fast. So that sounds kind of, it's just paranormal. Same house. We had one place on the back deck as a patio actually, but the every so often you get this scent of like old, like this weird perfume. It's very strange. There's an old cemetery behind that house too. I don't choose to live by cemeteries, but there happened to be one there too. But I'm not sure if that had to do with it. But so there's weird scent, this perfume, and then this ties into the same daughter. One night, um, I was still awake working, and she was asleep, and I heard the doors close. I was outside, and the doors closed, and went to look for her and couldn't find her anywhere. She was just not there. Big house, 4 bedrooms with bonus, but anyway, couldn't find her. And parents crazy terrified. Just what happened? Where did she go? Did someone come in the front door? Whatever. But so police at this point, and then I said, my wife was looking and couldn't find her, and I was like, let me look one more time. And I went back up in her room. She was there, but she wasn't. She was laying on top of her bed, her comforter, and she was sitting in the fetal position and saying, "The woman with the food box, the woman with the food box." no idea what that meant. I'm sorry, I'm getting chills right now. No idea what that meant, but kind of shook her out of it a little bit. I'm like, where did you go? She had no recollection of it. Zero. Nothing. And she the other thing she said was perfume. She said the one with the food box, the perfume. And that probably doesn't have to do with what I've noticed, but at the end of the day, we did a little research and found out that there's a story about that from about 120 years ago. But she had no recollection, and it was it was pretty terrifying. She It was almost like a sleepwalking versus out of body experience, but she had no idea where she went. We didn't know where she went either. We probably walked in the other direction where she was, but it was really, it was scary. It was really scary. So I don't know if that's anything to do with the Dogman stuff either, but it just certainly opens you up to knowing there's a lot more going on than what, the day to day, if you will.
It does open you up. Some awfully frightening experiences, and it makes me wonder if you think that those experiences, at least to a certain degree, might have prepped you for the Dogman encounters.
Think about that too. I mentioned hypervigilance is my best word earlier, but like just that it's almost like it's opening a door. And I've wondered that many times. Maybe they're not different. I was gonna say they're very different, but maybe they're not. I mean, maybe when we spoke before, I was even talking about is almost their paranormal feature or portion of this, which I don't think anybody knows, but it just it certainly seems like when a door opens, then hard to close, if you will.
Yeah, that's how it normally is, especially when you open up a door like that.
Yeah.
It's not good at all. Well, let's get to the listeners' questions from the live chat. The first one is from Andres Carrizales, and Andres wants to know, did you or anyone in your home get very sick after any of the encounters?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. Trying to make sure I'm not missing it. I don't think so. No.
I see. Yeah, the reason why I was asking is sometimes that's how it happens. After having a cryptid around, people can get sick. Don't know if that's infrasound or maybe something else, but it does happen sometimes. This
Well,
next,
let me rephrase that real quickly, though. I personally have had, actually, now that you mentioned it, it was not immediate, but I've had some strange health problems since around that this all started. I don't know if it's related or not, but they were more delayed, long-term stuff I still deal with that happened around after the time of this, but it wasn't an immediate illness, if that makes sense.
I see. Well, yeah, sometimes it happens that way. It's hard to
Okay.
explain. Maybe they are connected, like I said, but I guess we're never going to know. This next question is from Lori Mass, and Lori wants to know if the government let you know since you were a child, that brings, I'm not sure what she means here, that brings are real. I guess she's saying that these things are real and that you only get to see them if they want you to. They are always around. Do you think that you would have been traumatized?
Great question. I don't know. It's one that I wish they would tell me, but on the other hand, maybe it was better to be in the dark. But I guess those of us that have the encounter that we're not in the dark. So I guess my answer is, yeah, I wish I was told before. But that's it's if that's the case. But yeah, I don't. It's a tough question. I personally am one that would like to know. I would rather know good, bad, ugly, and not live in a box where might be more comfortable. But I would rather know. So the answer to that is yes, I would like to know.
It might seem like a given that anyone would want to know that these guys are out there and that would help them deal in a healthier way. But there are people who will tell you point blank that they would much rather not know. just be oblivious that these things are out there. So you never really know if someone's going to answer that question. You really don't. This next question for you, Jared, is from Lily Lewis. And Lily wants to know, Jared, do you feel like they want a relationship?
Kinda.
I think she means a relationship with you because you are the landowner.
Ooh. I was gonna say, yeah, I kind of do with the relationship part. I'm not sure why that is, but it being the landowner, I don't know. I haven't thought about that before. We kind of like the bark kind of thing, the bark term we used earlier. Yeah, I do feel like they want a relationship, but as far as being the landowner or not, I guess the fact is, everywhere I've had an encounter, I haven't owned the property, so maybe. Huh. I don't know. But almost like it was like land, maybe that was theirs, or I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that, but I do think they want a relationship with people that have encounters, and that's my opinion.
Please keep in mind that property owner, that's a human thing. I don't think these guys, I don't think Sasquatch, animals, period, they just don't recognize ownership. I mean, you're
As they should.
here.
They had it before we did, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. They probably see all the outdoor areas, their property, their territory, and you just happen to dwell in it whenever you come outside. So, as far
Huh.
as being a landowner, I don't think that's a paradigm that they share. I really don't.
Yeah, I was just thinking about being on the land. I guess is the better way to think of that. But anyway, yeah, yeah, I'm with you. Um, not not sure. I'm not sure if they move around a lot, or I presume they do. Because my first encounter was at a place I lived there for a few years before this happened. It's not a very rural area, so I don't know if they're you know transient or not. But it's that might have something to do with the land occupying land part.
Well, I think like any other large predator, these guys are obligate carnivores. But like any other large predator, I think it's a given they're going to have a huge home range. If they stayed in one area too long, they're going to deplete the resources in that area almost overnight. So it's a given they're going to have to move around and eventually they'll come back into the same area. But it's probably going to be a while before they do in most cases. Sometimes they do stay in one spot longer than expected, longer than normal, but yeah, that definitely does seem to be the exception and not the norm. This next question for you is from Ann Consul, and Ann wants to know, did Jerry mention seeing a tail?
No, I didn't. I did not see a tail. I My perspective was um, I saw not quite head on, probably 20, 30 degrees to the side. So I saw the side profile from front, but I could not see if it was a tail or not.
Yeah, you had so much going on that you're doing good to know your own name. You're just trying to get the heck out of there. And talking about you getting the heck out of there, running at top speed, have you come to terms with the fact now that you weren't running for your life, that you didn't save yourself that night, that it was just messing with you by coming after you?
Yes, I have. Now I say yes, I have. It's been a process, and these everyone else that shares these things that I listen to, you know, religiously, if you will, and your show, and speaking with you too, it all helps. It helps you understand that. I'm not saying that if tonight or tomorrow this happens again, I will not have a similar experience, but it won't haunt me. It won't hold me down like it did in the past. Yes, is the answer to that question.
Well, that's really good news. I tell the listeners they help the eyewitnesses so much more than they're ever going to know or appreciate. Well, it's definitely appreciated here and by the listeners. Count on that. I'm sorry, it's appreciated by me and the eyewitnesses, I should have said. This next question for you, Jared, is from Marta Magdalena. And Marta wants to know, if you see one once, you're more likely to see them again. Makes you wonder why. Is it because you are more aware or because they're after you? I guess it's more of a a statement more so than anything. If there is a twist of a question to that, yeah, that's a question we're never going to be able to answer. All we can do is basically guess about that. This
Right.
next question for you is from Andres Carrizales. And Andres wants to know, did you get any nightmares that felt too real to be dreams?
Yes, I did. And I still have them occasionally. I don't have the same fear I used to have, but yes, I've absolutely had some people call them lucid dreams. I haven't been plagued by them like some people I've heard, but and this actually relates right back to the fact of like wanting a relationship with you, because it's my dreams have gone from very terrifying to, oh, you're here again, if that makes sense. And it's like, I don't want you here, but I'm not as scared anymore. But I have them. I mean, I've gone maybe months without one. I don't have them all the time, but I will have them. And I had one very recently, a few days ago. But I'm not as terrified anymore. But so, and as far as the fact that it doesn't feel like a real dream, absolutely, it's not. It's much easier to be aware of your surroundings in the dreams with these guys, the Dogman, as opposed to other dreams that I have. So we all dream every night, but where you don't, at least for me, I don't have as much control or awareness as I do with these dreams. So I think the answer to that is absolutely yes.
The part of your brain that handles your ability to reason switches off when you're asleep. So that's why you have dreams and you wake up and you think, what in the world was that about? I mean, when you're awake, what happened to you in the dream, you would just instantly recognize is just off. It's not right. But when you're asleep, unless you refine your abilities for being able to lucid dream, that is, you're not going to be able to make sense of things in a lot of cases or control what's going on. But yeah, when you wake up, that's when you really need to focus on seeing what happened for what it really was and seeing these guys as accurately as possible for what they're likely to do and what they're not likely to do. Again, you can never think for one of these things, and you are going to have deviant ones that are dangerous and will harm you if they get the opportunity. But like I've said countless times, ones like that are definitely the exception, not the norm. So please keep that in mind. The next question for you is from me. I think it's me, pronounced me Graveguard or me Gravguard. Was it the same one that you and your wife saw? I think they're asking about this most recent one that you said you thought might have been bigger.
I don't think so, because we're in it's a different location. And yes, it seemed to be. It's just so hard to say, but I mean, it's been what 5.5 years, and yeah, I think it's different. But I mean, if it's the same one, that's even scarier because they do have a relationship with us. But I don't know. But also in 5 years, maybe it got bigger. You know, I'm not sure. But my instinct is it's different, not it's the same one. If that, yeah, that's my. I don't have a gut feeling that it's the same one. So.
Yeah, that could be a good thing. That could be a bad thing. If it's the same one, then okay, he's coming back around again. If it's a different one, okay, you've had an encounter with more than one dogman. You've got a new one in the area. So, yeah, pick your poison,
That and
unfortunately.
that is a little terrifying because the fact is I did make it to the house that first time, and I'm okay. So so the new one, it is a little. It's hopefully it's the same one, right? Like you said, or I don't have a read on that. So
Yeah, it's not going to give you the warm and fuzzies to think, okay, well, maybe it is another dog man, but I mean, there is a silver lining in this and all of this. I mean, you've already come to accept the fact that this dog man, the one you saw in the cemetery, it could have caught you if it wanted to that night. It allowed you to make it into the house. Well, you saw it that close to your house. That means that guy, he's probably seen you more times than you'd ever believe. You'd probably vomit if you had a clue about half the encounters, half the times that thing's been around watching you, monitoring you, but it's never harmed you. It never harmed you any of those times it was watching you. It didn't harm you that night when it chased you. The one that you heard walking around that you think might have been bigger than that first one, it knew you were there before you knew it was there. It didn't harm you that night. And just like the one you saw the first time around, I'm sure that one's been watching you, monitoring you more times than you'd ever believe. It hasn't harmed you. So, like I told you in that first conversation, as long as you see your experiences for what they really were, how they actually played out, and consequently what these guys showed you were their intentions with their actions, as long as you focus on the truth, in other words, you can definitely deal with this and make this get to the point where instead of thinking back on the experiences as, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, you can think back on these experiences and say, huh, wow, that sure was something else. Does that make sense?
Makes a ton of sense to me. And it did kind of key me in on tying a few other parts of this conversation together that, you know, you asked about the paranormal experiences too. I've always questioned whether if the Dogman has a paranormal aspect, if you will, because I don't know, anyone who watches, pays any attention to this paranormal stuff, the feed on energy and fear. If you believe that, I just know a lot of people say that. So it almost feels to me like it's that way with Dogman, where obviously it could have got me. Yeah, it could. You'd hear about it a lot more if they wanted to get a lot of people. But it's almost like this looming. It's almost like the fear keeps them going. They enjoy it. I know many people said kind of get a smile or smirk, and I actually kind of the first one I had a kind of I don't know if he was trying to show his teeth to eat me or if he was smiling or not. But I mean, it's almost like it kind of feels like there's a pleasure about creating fear.
They
Anyway,
do seem to feed off of it.
yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately. This next question for you is from Ann Conzal. And Ann wants to know, not to be too nosy, but were you ever involved with Ouija boards or tarot cards or palm readings?
No, absolutely no. Nope.
That's good. Yeah,
No.
that's a common thread. It seems like whenever I ask an eyewitness if they've ever played with those, in a lot of cases, in most cases, it seems like they say yes. So I'm glad you haven't.
That stuff scares me. I do think, based on the houses I told you about and the paranormal experiences, that I've encountered some things that might have opened the door, but I've never intentionally done it. Absolutely not. So.
That's good. Yeah, that's very good. This next question up is from Shannon Umanazer. And Shannon, hey Shannon, her question is, did he say exactly where his encounters happened? What county? And of course, you don't have to answer that if you don't want to. You want
Southeast
to
North
remain.
Carolina. Southeast North Carolina is what I'm comfortable saying.
All right, easy enough. The next one for you is from Scott B. And he wants to know, I guess it's more of a statement. Nobody would go camping or visit the national parks. A lot of money is lost by the government, my opinion. Talking about if they actually let the cat out of the bag that cryptids are out there,
Yeah.
especially dogmen. Yeah, they don't want that to happen, that's for sure. The next question for you is from Kamala, and Kamala wants to know, what color were their eyes and fur?
Completely the amber. I didn't even know the exact color until after I looked it up. I mean, it was the most strongest amber I've ever seen. I know some people say they're red and this and that. They were amber, and they were just they were piercing amber. Is the best I could say. The fur, I want to say black, could have been dark brown. I didn't see any gray, but it might have been really dark brown. But I want to say dark brown, really dark brown, but it could have been black too, because that was letting cloud cover go around the moon, in the hurricane time. So, And the one recently is definitely black, but the first one I think it might have been dark brown.
Well, like I said, you had so much going on. You thought you were trying to save your skin from this thing. You thought it was going to try and rip you apart. So you're doing really good to pick up any details about these guys. I'm impressed.
Well, yeah. So it's amazing what your mind can do in that split second when you're terrified and how much you remember. You know what I mean? It's
Well, yeah, it's like you
I
took
wish I could do that every day. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's like you took a picture. Oh no, you're fine. Yeah, when you're panicked like that, it's like your mind takes a picture, a snapshot of what you see, and it's burned into your mind. So, yeah, that does make sense. This next one for you is from Beverly Yeager, and she wants to know how tall it was.
Yeah, the first one is I'm over 6 feet, and it was 7 at least. I could not get a read on the one I've seen recently, but I do think it was bigger. I don't know, 7 to 8, but the first one was certainly my best estimate is about 7.5 maybe, because
So,
it was stretched out. It was laid down, so I couldn't really tell exactly. It was big, but it was it wasn't enormous, but I mean, it was a very big human size. I know that, so very big.
so it wasn't big for a dog man, but it was still big at the same time. I mean, 7, 8 feet, that's
Yeah,
big.
yeah,
Yeah, it is. The next one up is from Christine Robazek. And her question is, did it feel like it was going to attack you?
absolutely. I mean, yes. I mean, my first counter, I cut and run. I mean, I felt like I had impending doom even before I saw it. It was terrifying. I didn't think I would make it 400 yards just to presume safety. But yes,
Yeah, that was a given that you thought it was going to attack you. That's what these guys are masterful at. They know how to push our buttons. I mean, that's one of the many unfortunate things about these guys. They know how to get a response out of us. They really do. So I've got no doubts you thought that. And yet every reason to think that too. The next one is from Todd Bettina, and Todd wants to know what came to mind when you first saw the dog man. What did you think it was? Did it look ancient? Good question.
again, it just had this massive impending doom fear that came over me before I saw it. And I just remember walking around the car, and then like I didn't want to even look, but I saw something I had to look at. And I remember thinking, first thought was, oh, there's eyes. Wow, why is that animal out here? It's probably a coyote out here in the storm. That's crazy. But then I noticed it's way too big. The eyes are too big. Then the moonshine came on it. So once I actually saw it was I didn't know it was Dogman. I mean, I know now, but I mean it was I was expecting to see a coyote or a fox or possum or something, but it was once I saw the size of this thing, it, I was just it that isn't supposed to be doesn't exist. Run. That's what going through my mind. So
That and tons of other things as well.
yeah.
Yeah, countless things, and understandably so. The next question for you is from Yappy Banjo, and he wants to know, or she wants to know, have you ever had the feeling or strong desire to go into the woods, even though maybe you didn't want to?
I think I'm going to speculate here that there's an intrigue about this with me. Yes, I have an intrigue about this stuff now. But I've never felt compelled to walk. Well, maybe a little bit, but I don't think it's not overwhelming. Not overwhelming. But I am very intrigued, and I can feel a pull, but it's not to the point where I've stopped what I'm doing to go. You know, does that make sense?
That does make sense. Yeah, the reason why they're asking that is sometimes it seems like Sasquatch use ultrasound to make people do things that they normally wouldn't do under their own accord. So I think they're wondering if maybe this dogman might have hit you with ultrasound on an occasion where you found yourself doing something that was against your best interest or something you normally wouldn't do. I think that's where that question came from.
Yeah, and I will pause and stop there is a draw, there is a pull, but so far it's not been overwhelming, but there is definitely a pull. So anyway, yep.
Yeah, sometimes it happens that way. Beverly Yeager has the next question. She wants to know, have you ever thought of giving it a peace offering?
Um, One, I don't know if we're not at peace or not, but and I wouldn't know how to do that. But that's a great idea. I'm not sure how I never thought about how to do that, but that'd be great if I could. I never really thought about it though.
There's a researcher out there who recommends that eyewitnesses do that. I'm going to highly recommend against that. These guys, they are so up and down as far as their emotions and how they respond to things. I would definitely recommend against doing that because, okay, if you start putting offerings out there on a pattern, for example, every Tuesday, well, what happens if a Tuesday comes around and you don't put an offering out there because whatever, you're sick, if something happens, you're visiting family out of town, how's it going to respond? Is it going to take that as a slight? And the last thing you want on your hands is a dog man that feels slighted. So that's just one of the many reasons I'm going to recommend against ever even beginning that sort of thing.
I can't agree with you more. That's actually a relevant topic where I live now. People are feeding alligators, and then when they don't have their food, they get angry. Well, they've been fine for 100 years here, but you just don't do it. Don't start it.
Definitely. Yeah, don't start none, there won't be none. Well, with these guys, I guess there is going to be some, but yeah, why put a situation in place where you're increasing the odds of having a problem?
Flame the fire, right? No, you know.
That's right. The next one is from True Heart. They want to know if it mind spoke to you.
Felt like things slowed down, but again, it was such a maybe before I even saw it because gosh, I'm just getting chills again thinking about it. It was somehow it got my attention before I even saw the thing, and it was I didn't get any words, any verbalization. I didn't recognize it anyway, but certainly got to me. I know that, but I did not. As far as you said, mine spoke. As far as speaking language, I don't know. I didn't hear anything direct. Just a feeling.
There have been plenty of times where they have apparently mind spoken with eyewitnesses, but yeah, that's definitely the exception and not the norm, not the rule when it happens. So it doesn't surprise me that it didn't do that with you on any of those occasions. This
If it
next,
did, I was too scared to listen.
well, yeah, understandably so. This is the last question of the night. It's from Saint Euphemia, and they want to know, did you ever see any? They want to know if you saw it run on all fours. Did it move
Yes.
like any kind of animal?
No, it was gliding. It literally, and this is the one recently. It, I'm telling you, gosh, it's got to be. It's nearly a half a mile I could see, and it seemed like it took a few steps, on all fours and just s- almost skated across the ground in this field. It was, yes, I did see that, and they're stretched out, very stretched out. Um, but it was a lot of strength. I'll say that.
Don't know how they do it, but Sasquatch do that as well. So it's not like that's unprecedented. Well, Jared, I can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing the details of these experiences with us. Of course, I really hate the fact that you had to experience these things, but you didn't ask for them, but all you can do is just try to deal with them as healthy of a way as you can. And please remember too, if you start having trouble, I'm not going anywhere. All you have to do is just let me know and we'll just schedule another conversation. I'll find out what's ailing you and we'll take it from there.
Thank you, Vic. Do you mind if I say one thing about my experience the last 6 years with you?
Oh, no, by all means, if you'd like to say anything.
I just I, I sat back, got a little ridicule when I told local, we talked about it at the beginning, family, friends, but been listening to you a long time. Anyone listening who's doing like what I did for 6 years, 5 or 6 years, just getting it out in a comfortable community, it helps tremendously. It just does, and so grateful that you're here. Um, you've been helpful before, but it's even more so now talking to you, and and it's kind of it's putting the burden down a little bit, and just really grateful for you. And I just highly encourage anyone to just get a safe community, talk about it. It helps. It does.
It definitely does. And hearing you say that, that's why I do all this. I put in all the hours and all the work. I just feel so lucky to be in a position to be able to try and help. And of course, the listeners, the people out there listening to the show who offer all this support for you and other eyewitnesses, I know they feel the same way. Otherwise, they wouldn't do it. They wouldn't help the way they do. But yeah, like I said, please remember, if you ever need help in the future, please let me know.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, having said that, yeah, thanks again so much for coming on and sharing the details of those experiences, and have a great night.
You too.
Thanks. We'll see ya. All right, that's another one in the books. Like I've told you before, thanks again so much for listening and for supporting all the eyewitnesses. Touching on what Jared just said, if you've had a Dogman encounter that you'd like to speak with me about, whether in private or on the show, please go to dogmanencounters.com, submit a report. And if you do that, then, of course, if you totally complete the report, that is, want to put that out there, that qualification, then I will contact you and schedule a phone conversation with you. Before we get out of here, also, please remember Monday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, going to have that special bonus episode where Kim's going to come on and tell us about this most recent encounter she's had with Ember. And of course, like I said earlier, she's got this announcement. She wants to let you know about a special twist to this sighting that is going to blow you away. It sure blew me away. Couldn't believe it. But thanks again so much for listening, everyone. And not only have a great night, but hope you have a great weekend. We'll catch you then on Monday.